Jonathan Wage, welcome to the show. How's it going today?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Cool. I'm excited to talk to you about TradersPost IO. I'm hoping to use this software myself in the near future, and so it's really cool for me to kind of interrogate you a little bit on your, how you built it and where you came from. So let's go ahead and dive in. Tell me a little bit about your background and how did you get into finance in the beginning?
Sure. So my background, I'm a systems and software engineer. I've been a CTO at several different companies over the last 20 years. Worked across a lot of different industries from e-commerce to government, healthcare. As far as how I got into finance, I've always managed my own personal investments and have been trading for a little over 10 years. And I worked at a company named Open Sky. I was the CTO there for about 10 years. And we sold the company to Alibaba. I can't believe it. It's been almost five or
Wow.
6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And through that transition, it kind of allowed me the opportunity to kind of take a little break from the the typical 9 to 5 type of job. And I did end up going to work for a healthcare company after that. And right around when COVID hit, I decided to quit my job and start Traders Post. And the software that is Traders Post had actually existed for a long time before I decided to start Traders Post. It was originally just a tool that I use personally for my own trading. It
Hmm.
wasn't actually even used for trading originally. It was actually just used to download my order history from all the brokers that I used.
Okay.
And then slowly that code base started to evolve, and TradingView came out with webhooks, and I started getting involved with learning PineScript, and
Mm.
I started to realize that I could connect these two things, and I enhanced my broker integrations to also support creating orders, basically making them support the ability to write in addition to reading from the brokers.
Yeah.
And I built a couple different strategies in PineScript. And I was a member of a couple different trading communities at the time, and I was sharing kind of screenshots of what I was building, and people were just kind of asking me over and over, when can I use this? When can I use this? And I hadn't really thought of honestly starting a business. It was just, I'm a maker, I guess is what they call them these days. I like to build stuff,
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
both in the digital world and the physical world. And that's kind of when I realized that maybe there's an opportunity to create a business out of this. And I basically took what I had built that was private just for me. There was no name for it. It was actually called Project X, was just
Mm.
like my internal name.
Right.
Um, and I decided to launch Traders Post, and 2 or 3 months after I decided to launch it, I had my first few customers, and I guess the rest is history.
That's awesome. So you were already building something for yourself, and the fact that you were in a community kind of helped validate that for you, right? So it's not like you said, I'm going to create this thing and people are going to love it. You were getting like some pre-validation or whatever you call it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had product market fit before I even had any customers, I guess. I mean,
Mm.
I've read a couple books about how building for community is a great way to start a business. And that was
Yeah.
really cool. I definitely had a lot of great early customers and early feedback from those customers that kind of shaped the direction of the product. But definitely just building it for myself originally, like I knew I needed it. Then I
Hmm.
slowly started to realize, like, well, if I need it, I'm a lot like a lot of other people in the world. So
Yeah.
the likelihood that other people will want it and need it in the same way that I'm using it, is relatively high.
Right. So give me the quick overview of what Trader Post does or what it's able to do now. I know we talked about you mentioned the original sort of iteration, but what is it doing now to kind of help people with their trading problem or make it
Sure.
more efficient?
Sure. So basically, when someone wants to build and automate a trading strategy today, there are APIs that you can get from the broker, and you could build a low level integration with that broker via the API, but it requires a whole host of skills. Like you have to know how to write code in some programming language. You probably have to have systems administration skills, database administration, basically all the skills that you are required in order to build like a complex system. You would have to have all those skills. So the
Right.
barrier of entry is pretty high. And TradersPost is basically a level above that, where you can send signals to TradersPost via what's called a webhook. And
Mhm.
a webhook is essentially an API, but it's much, much simpler. And conveniently, applications and platforms like TradingView or TrendSpider, they have the ability to trigger alerts. And those alerts can be sent to third parties as webhooks. So if you build a strategy in TradingView, or you build your strategy in TrendSpider, or really any system like MetaTrader 5, they all have the ability to send alerts and webhooks.
Mhm.
You can basically relay those webhooks to TradersPost, and then we'll receive that webhook and then apply a bunch of rules that you configure on our side for
Mhm.
what to do with that webhook. And that's
Okay.
what broker to send it to, how many quantity to buy. Are we buying shares, calls, puts? Are we buying futures?
Right.
So basically just make it much, much easier for non-technical, non-developer types of people to automate their strategies in their existing broker.
Wow, that's really cool. I was just talking to one of my members the other day in email, and we started talking about things like position size, and there's one aspect of trading of when to trade, right, and then how much to trade, and the more that you can pre-plan that out, the better off you're going to be. So it sounds like you're able to you have a signal, which I want to linger on that for in a minute, but you get kind of a signal, but you can already preset, like, okay, if I get this signal, I want to buy one call option or 100 shares. And then because that's integrated with the broker, what about things like stops and targets? And you mentioned TradingView and TrendSpider, which my immediate thought is, okay, you're mainly focused on maybe technical analysis type entries. But are there ways to program profit and stop losses outside of technical analysis, or can you also have technical analysis based exits?
Yeah, you can really have both. On the position sizing, you can just hard code a quantity, but you can also configure a dollar amount or a percentage amount relative to your account size, and it'll
Oh,
dynamically
cool.
calculate quantities.
Gotcha.
But you can also just send an explicit quantity from the signal. But the convenient thing about doing percentage based position sizing is that you could run the same strategy across multiple different brokers, and the
Hmm.
quantity gets calculated dynamically relative to the account that the order is being sent to.
Gotcha.
Um, and then on the take profit and stop losses, you have kind of two options. Um, there's the simple, I enter at $100 and I want to get stopped out at 90. So that would either be, a $10 amount stop loss or a 10% stop loss. And you can
Right.
configure those in TradersPost. And whenever we get a signal to TradersPost that would result in an entry order being sent to the broker, we'll basically just tack on those those calculated take profit and stop loss orders, so
Hmm.
that they're actually in the broker ahead of time. But then you have another option where you can basically only send the entry order ahead of time, but then you can do all of your logic for your take profit and stop loss in your strategy in TradingView. And then you can kind of get as complicated as you want it to be. It can be trailing stops. You can have stops that are based off of technical analysis. Like, real simple example, if you had a moving average strategy, the
Hmm.
entry could be the moving average crossing one way, and then the exit is the moving average crossing back the other direction.
Right.
That's a real simple example, but you can kind of program whatever you want into your strategy to say, if any of these things are true, send the signal to TradersPost to exit the open position.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's a lot of options to configure that stuff. I know as an options trader, I tend to use some technical analysis for entry, but I I tend to use profit targets, and I don't like the word stop. I usually do defined risk stuff, but
Yep. And we
I
do have that ability too, actually.
yeah,
We have the ability to calculate a stop loss based off of a risk unit. So
right, okay,
you say that the most you want to lose is $100, and you send a signal to get in Apple at $100. We know where the stop loss has to be, and we calculate the quantity based off of that, so that the most you'll lose is that $100.
right. Do you end up in the world where your broker's just kind of dumb and you can just do everything in Traders Post? So let's say you're creating strategies in TradingView and you're like, okay, I want to implement this. Can you just manage everything from Trading's Post, like dollar amounts, stop levels, all that? Or do you still need some level of like, do you need to open up the trading platform too?
Well, it's kind of, my advice is it's always wise to have both open. You
Yeah,
can do,
I know that I would, because you
yeah,
want to see it, right? You
yeah,
want
and
to,
you just, you
yeah,
always kind of want that door open in case you need to do something directly in the broker. I mean,
yeah.
TradingView and Traders Post and the broker, all three of us are connected via the public internet. So
Hmm.
we don't have like special connections between each other that we control. So we're kind of
Right.
at the mercy of the public internet. And these things are super rare, but technically it's
Yeah.
possible that there could be a communication blip between us because we depend on the public internet. Like,
Right.
you hear in the news sometimes that like a major internet service provider,
Yeah.
backbone
Yeah.
provider, has an issue, and that can cause the whole internet to have issues.
Yeah.
So you just need to be kind of aware of that and monitoring, and you might have to manually log into your broker to do something, but you can manage all of your positions and your orders and everything directly from Traders Post. We have a full trading UI that lets you see everything from within Traders Post. So yeah, we try to make it to where it's like a full trading platform
Hmm.
where you can have all your brokers connected to Traders Post, and then you can manage everything across all of your broker accounts from one platform. But then we don't have access to certain things like, your withdrawals or connecting your
Right.
bank accounts or anything like that. So
Right.
you still have to log into your broker to do those kinds of things. But as far as
Right.
managing positions and orders and things like that, you can do that all from Traders Post.
Cool. Very cool. Now I know, the world of trade automation. I know there's other platforms that can automate, and I think automate is kind of it's like I use Thinkorswim sometimes, and people talk about, oh, you can automate your trade, and what they're really saying is, oh, you can set up an order like an OCO bracket to where it'll automate. So the word automate is a little bit I want to clarify that, I guess. So what's your sort of definition of automate in terms of how Traders Post is viewing that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the word automate is, it's a pretty broad bucket, but in
Yeah.
the context of Traders Post, it literally means a strategy is fully automated. So you predefine via software that's continually watching the chart. So if you set up a strategy on the 1 hour chart,
Mm.
think of it like every time a 1 hour bar closes, there's some software that's running, and it's looking at all of the bars before it that have closed, and maybe it's looking at moving averages or Bollinger Bands or whatever you can invent. I mean, the
Yeah.
one thing that I've learned is that the ways in which people can trade is infinite. Like, if
Right.
you can think it and you know how to write code, and of course, I mean, there are inherent limitations, but the possibilities are pretty broad.
Mm.
Especially with TradingView and PineScript, you can really kind of program whatever you want to. So in that context, it's literally end to end, full automation. All the entries, all the exits, everything are 100% automated with your broker.
Gotcha. Okay. So from a kind of business perspective, what were some of the technical challenges for getting Traders Post to do this, in addition to letting other people do it? Because it's one thing when you build something for yourself but when you're building something, especially when it involves money and touching people's account in a certain way, what were some of the challenges? Were they more technical, or was it more legal, or what were some of the challenges to getting this thing off the ground?
I mean, definitely early on, getting access for the broker integrations was a challenge, and it's still an ongoing challenge. There's brokers that we want to integrate with that just haven't given us the approval yet. And when I was building it just for myself, it was easier because they give access to like individual API access much easier. But when you start to build a business on top of their API, they kind of make you go through a different path where you have to meet with them, and they want to understand who you are and what your
Right.
business is, and they make you sign a contractual agreement. So that was definitely kind of the first hurdle, and it's a little bit of, if you know the right people, you can get in the door really fast. But I'm a bootstrap startup. Like, I don't have VCs, with tons of money and tons of connections. So I've kind of had to, just beat the ground and continually email and sort of harass the brokers, I guess, to try to get them to give me access. That was kind of the first hurdle. There's definitely a lot of technical hurdles. I've built, like I said, I've been a systems and software engineer for 20 years, and I've worked in a lot of different industries, but frankly, I've dealt with things that are finance related, but they were more like less real time types of finance problems. So like if something goes wrong, it's easy to fix. Like, you have time to fix it. With automated trading and strategies, like if something happens and a signal is missed or something, like you can't really fix that. You can't go back. Like the strategy already said to buy, that time has passed, and there's really no way to fix that.
It's like UDP protocol over TCP protocol. I came from IT, so I get that. That's why you get choppy phone calls, because it's not going to try to catch the voice or video that it missed. It's just going to give you what it's got, and you can drop packets and stuff.
So I try to keep it, the level of quality of the software and like how much I expect of myself as far as like automated tests and quality assurance tests. Like I do a lot more of that with TradersPost. Not to say I didn't do it before, but there's more risk involved. So like I'm moving a little bit slower, which is a good thing and a bad thing. With other businesses where there's less risk, I can make changes to the software a little bit more aggressively. But with TradersPost, I'm definitely moving a little bit slower and being a little bit more meticulous. I'm really aggressive with how much automated tests we have for our software. So I have to maintain a 95% code coverage level. And that just means that just like you have automated trading, I have software that I've written for my software that is basically testing the software. So it's running through, like every time I make a change or add a feature, I write a test for it. And that basically means that I'm running that feature and verifying that it does what I expect it to do after I run that feature. And then every time I make a change to the software, I run that full suite of automated tests to make sure I haven't broken anything accidentally. And, you'll hear, it's like basically every software system in the world has this concept. Every time you get on an airplane, the pilot is running diagnostic tests, and they're testing all the levers and all the flaps, and those computer software is sending data back to another computer, and then there's something that's running an analysis on it to say, hey, are all the engines working correctly? Are all the flaps working correctly? And you can't take off unless you get a thumbs up from that software saying that everything is 100% operational.
That's definitely with the real time, I can imagine that you need those in place to kind of make sure everything's running efficiently.
And it all happens before, like you do it, you have a separate environment where you run these tests, so that your development and your testing is happening outside of the production environment. And then as soon as you get that thumbs up, then you can kind of move that software change into production, and you can do it with confidence. You can sleep at night. Well, you still lose a little bit of sleep, but you lose less knowing that you've kind of done everything that you can possibly do to make sure that you haven't accidentally broken something when you're changing the software.
So who do you think is a good fit for Traders Post? I know there's people come in with a variety of levels of trading and different areas, stocks, options, futures. Maybe who do you see your current customers? Do they fit in a certain maybe bucket right now, or who do you think the ideal person would be to come check you out?
Right now, it's definitely a more technical trader, a more advanced trader. That's kind of who we're targeting right now, because you have to know, you have to have some basic skills with technical analysis. Like, you have to have the strategy idea.
Right.
That's the starting point. And that might change in the future where, maybe we'll start connecting people who develop strategies with people who want to buy a strategy from someone.
Hmm.
But we just haven't built those features in Traders Post yet. So
Yeah.
you have to build your own strategy. You have to know how to test it and how to develop it, how to verify the results, and how to do that analysis and that process of developing the strategy idea. And we produce content and documentation that kind of tries to teach people how to do that.
Hmm.
But there is a pretty significant learning curve, which that kind of narrows the pool of customers that we can go after right now.
Hmm.
But we hope to, in the future, lower that barrier of entry and kind of maybe have like a marketplace of strategies that would allow the much longer tail of retail traders to just come to Traders Post, connect their broker, find a strategy that they like, and
Hmm.
connect it to their broker. But there's a variety of other things that we need to build first before
Yeah.
we kind of open the doors for something like that.
Very cool. I know you mentioned when you started out and you're a programmer and you were able to program something into an API on your own. And so, you're adding this, the way I see it, I guess you're basically taking some of the coding away, right? So you're making it easier for people to implement a strategy. And you mentioned TradingView, which I actually use TradingView. I've kind of gotten away from trying to keep up with any kind of coding. I did stuff in the past. I'm a Cisco iOS person from networking and routing, so it's a different kind of programming. But I don't want to do that anymore, right? Because I'm old and don't want to keep learning this code. I want to learn other things.
Right.
So, what other platforms? We talked about automation, and you definitely, you don't want to automate something unless you believe in the strategy or you've tested it yourself or whatever. So, for someone who maybe isn't a coder, what other platform or what platform could maybe they start with to develop a strategy that would, eventually be able to send a webhook to Traders Post if they wanted to implement it? You mentioned TrendSpider.
TrendSpider.
Is
Yeah,
that the
TrendSpider.
main one?
I mean, TrendSpider and TradingView are kind of the main ones. Obviously, TradingView is the biggest.
Hmm.
So TradingView has two ways you can build a strategy or find a strategy. TradingView, obviously, they have, I think, like tens of millions of users, and they've
Yeah.
kind of created this social network of traders, and you can go
And
find,
you service, like, you can find someone to program for you. And I
you
know
can,
that. So I
yeah.
know if you wanted to go that route, you could.
Yeah. Yeah, you can find like you can have the idea and then you can go to a site like Fiverr or Upwork. We have a
Hmm.
list of PineScript developers on our website as well, on our
Mm,
documentation.
okay.
Um, but then you can just like browse within TradingView, like they have a way to search community scripts, and you can kind of just like find a strategy that someone else has written and then hook it up to Traders Posts.
Hmm.
That's kind of a way a lot of people start. It's like it's just like, with any kind of programming, you can search Google and find examples of other people doing what you're trying to do, and you look at their code and read it and learn from it, and maybe you copy and paste that code, and then you're like, oh, this works, but I want it to also do this, and then you go Google or use ChatGPT or however you want to ask your
Yeah.
friend or however you want to learn about how to do that thing,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of merge that first version with this other piece of code, and you kind of hammer on it a little for a little while until it does what you want it to do. um, And it doesn't stop there. Like, it never stops. Like, software development, like, it never ends. It's never, nothing is ever done.
Right.
And you always need to be constantly adapting, because strategies are built in the context of the market, and the market is always changing. It's never the same. So you may write this strategy and it works great for 6 months or 12 months, but then something changes about the market or the economy that causes the price action to change, and now that strategy stops working. So
Yeah.
you need to be constantly developing and testing different strategy ideas. So with TradingView, the possibilities are endless. The barrier of entry is higher because you have to know how to write code unless you hire a PineScript developer. With TrendSpider, it's no code strategy building. So you don't have the ability to like drop down to a low level programming language. You can use like their drag and drop user interface to say, you know, when this moving average crosses over this moving average, trigger a buy.
Right.
And it can get pretty complicated, but it can never be as complicated as TradingView and PineScript, because you have access to that low level code. So
Right.
TrendSpider is easier, but the complexity of what you can build isn't as robust as what TradingView can do.
I used TrendSpider for a little while because I like to just try things out. And I did use their backtest program. And I know from an options trader, you couldn't backtest option strategies, but you could backtest. I was doing some leveraged ETF buys and sells and things like TQQQ and stuff like that. And we talked before, and I'm going to dust off some of those strategies and try to get those connected with you soon. So let's talk about real quick from a business perspective. What's your business model? How does TradersPost make money off this automation?
Sure. So we're purely just a software as a service company. So we kind of have the typical B2C software as a service business model. We charge a subscription fee to get access to the software. There are monthly and yearly plans. And then there's different level plans. So like there's a starter plan for $49 a month, and that's kind of your entry level plan that gives you access to automate strategies. You can only automate it in one broker, but if you wanted to automate a strategy in multiple brokers, there are plans above the starter plan that would enable you to do that. But yeah, we're just a regular traditional software as a service business right now. You know, we've definitely had conversations internally about other approaches, like charging per signal, or even charging like a percentage based on like the size of your account that's connected. But it gets complicated when you do that, and it starts to straddle the line of, you know, are you charging the customer based off of the performance? And there are implications of doing that, you know, that we're just not clear on yet. So we've decided to just be purely software as a service.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's another platform that I think it's totally different, but they're not pulling in webhooks for technical analysis and stuff. But I saw their pricing model, and it was where up to $10,000 was a certain fee, but then if you want to trade bigger size, they charged more. So it was sort of a quasi mix of entry level, and then, but if you really have a big account, are gonna, and they obviously up the support level, I believe, for those higher, account holders or whatever. But yeah, there was something you said a minute ago, and I want to kind of go back to, where, you know, as a trader, it's like, where do you want to spend your time? And I think the way I'm seeing this is I've always been like this. I spend a lot of time researching, back testing, and then you get to like an implementation / execution. And what TradersPost seems like it could do for me is let me, you know, come up with, you know, be very thorough with my strategy and say, okay, I want to implement this. And I know you have a paper trading mechanism, so you could implement something without risking money. Is that correct? Like I could,
right,
you know, implement a future strategy or whatever. Is that
Yeah,
right?
and you can connect a broker like TradeStation or Alpaca, and they have paper trading as well.
Oh, okay.
But then the TradersPost system itself has its own paper broker, but it's a little bit more limited. There are just some features that we don't support at the broker level that,
Okay.
Alpaca or TradeStation would support. But it's kind of a good and easy way to kind of like just quote unquote kick the tires. Like a lot of people
Yeah. Yeah.
sign
I
up and
mean,
they just want to see it work initially,
yeah.
to make sure it works before they kind of invest more time in it.
Yeah. And I can see, envision implementing that strategy into a paper account, because you always want to sort of validate. I do that with real money, unfortunately. And so I'll have a couple strategies that I've researched and share in my community, and then it's like, okay, I'm trading it, and now I'm trading some stuff manually, and then I'm not entering at the right moment. So is it me? Is it the strategy if it doesn't do well? And you kind of that execution sort of variable there is the human part of that is actually a real thing. And so it sounds like you're helping solve that problem. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the idea sometimes is the easiest part. The saying ideas are worth 2 cents.
Yeah.
And it's all in how you execute it. And computers have no emotions, and they're going to do what you tell it to do no matter what.
Yeah.
And if your strategy truly is good and you've executed it and back tested it, sorry, not executed, but back tested it,
Mhm.
and kind of done all that pre-execution validation and analysis, and you're accounting for slippage and commissions, and usually in your back test you want to plan for the worst case scenario, meaning like you get the worst
Yeah.
possible fill from the broker, you get all the slippage,
Mhm.
and you want to back test with those worst case scenarios just to see how robust your strategy is.
Yeah.
Because if you back test a strategy and you have zero slippage in there, like your back test is flawed. And we could do a whole nother podcast on like the ways in which people can have flawed analysis. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, there are actually a lot of really bad actors out there in the space that, they're on Twitter and Discord and YouTube, and
Mhm.
they create these strategies with misleading back testing results where they don't incorporate slippage or commissions, or
Yeah.
sometimes they'll accidentally or purposely, I don't know, I'll never know for sure, but these strategies have look ahead bias. And it basically just means like it's possible to write Pine script where you actually peek into the future
Mhm.
to see what will happen. And obviously in real time, when that strategy is running, you don't have access to the future candles. So it can make a strategy look really, really good in the back test, but then when you run it live, you get different results.
Yeah.
And that's called repainting. And that's something that
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure.
every customer we get that's a beginner that comes through the door, it's like the rite of passage as a automated trader. Is like you have to learn about commissions, you learn about slippage, learn about repainting,
You got to let
look ahead
you got to
bias.
let that candle close because you're not, you know
Exactly.
what I mean? You got to let that
Yep. Yep.
whatever candle you're looking at. That's
Right.
cool.
Yep.
Well, this is cool, man. I appreciate you coming on the show. I know I'm definitely going to be in touch with you to dust off one of my strategies that I want to start messing with again. And it sounds like this would be a good fit for me. What's the best way for my listeners to connect with you? Should they just go to the website, TradersPost.io? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Or
TradersPost.io. On the website, in the header, there's a community link.
Mhm.
And then from there, there's a Discord link, Twitter, Instagram, all the typical social media.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, we have a community of traders in our Discord. There's a couple hundred people in there, and everyone's kind of collaborating and asking questions and trading ideas.
very
And
cool.
then, all the typical support at traderspost.io. You can email us. And there's also a phone number on the website that you can call to contact us.
Very cool. Well, this was awesome, man. I appreciate all the work you've done, and I wish you all the best in your startup. And we'll catch you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. It's nice
Yeah,
to see you.
thanks.
Take care.